reports, and dashboards. All right, in the last couple of nuggets, we've been talking about the process of creating queries. And then as part of that, we've talked about the process of creating collections as well. And throughout that process, we've talked about how there's this special provider language that's used by Configuration Manager for the process of creating queries. Now, that language, that special provider language, is really a component or a translation, if you will, from what we know of as standard SQL query language. And in the last nugget, we actually went to SQL Server, and we talked about the tables, and we talked about the views inside of SQL Server that you can use to help generate some of those queries. Now, what you may not know at this point is that knowing SQL, knowing the ability to create SQL queries natively within SQL language also helps you in a direct way whenever you're creating both reports and dashboards. In this nugget, we're going to talk about that process of creating reports and dashboards, and we're going to look at not only the custom reports that we'll create, but also some of the canned reports and something we call asset intelligence reports as well. We're going to start by creating a reporting point, which is the another role that our site server can actually hold in order to create a location where people can go to it over the web and pull these reports over the web. And then we're going to create some reports using SQL. We're going to show how you can use SQL views to make the process of creating those reports a little bit easier. Now, dashboards, once we understand reports, dashboards are relatively easy to create because they are just tiered and combined reports put together on one single screen so that we can see a lot of different data from one location. I think you'll find that the process of creating dashboards is going to be very handy for you because you'll use these dashboards for a single glimpse look at various data within your Configuration Manager infrastructure. The first thing we need to do, actually, before we can see some of these reports inside of the web interface is to actually create a reporting point within our Configuration Manager infrastructure here. Here's again our Configuration Manager console here, and we're looking at the reporting node here under Dashboards and Reports. What we want to do first is go under Site Settings here and expand the Site Settings node, and then go to Site Systems. What we're looking to do here is for our server sccm nugget, we want to add the role for a reporting point. And we haven't done that yet because we want to do it here in this nugget so we can see the linkage between reporting points and the reports themselves. If we right-click on sccm nugget and choose New Roles, that will bring forward the new Site Role Wizard. I'm going to roll this up just a little bit here so you can see that we want to specify a fully qualified domain name for this site system on the internet. Now, in here, I'm going to put sccm nugget.nuggetlab.com. That's the name of the system we want to install this reporting point to. If you have multiple systems inside of your environment, you may want to make one of them a reporting point and make other ones different roles and divide out the responsibilities of the different servers that make up your environment. In our case, again, we only have a single server in this environment, so we're putting all of our roles on this single server. If we're using internet-based clients, we can choose an internet-based FQDN for this system as well. We can choose to use the site server's computer account or another account for installing this system. We're essentially remotely, even though we're doing it locally, we're remotely installing that reporting point to the system that we identify in this box up here. I'm going to click Next here, and we're going to be able to choose which of the system roles that we want to install. In this case, that's going to be the reporting point. I'm going to click Next again, and you'll see here that now, as part of that reporting point, we're going to be creating a folder called SMS-reporting_CBN, and then now we're going to have a URL that we can use to actually make use of those reports. You'll see this is the URL right here. I'm going to copy this URL to the clipboard because we're going to make use of this URL a little bit later. It's going to be http://sccm nugget port 80, in this case because we're using HTTP for that the transfer protocol, and then SMS reporting_CBN. We could also use HTTPS if we wanted to make that a secure location so we had transport level security for getting to those reports. We're going to click Next here, and you'll see we have all of the summary of the things we're about to do, and if we click Next again, it's going to begin the process of installing that reporting point. You can see here that there's not much to do because it's a local install, it's a very quick install as well, that the Site Role Wizard completes successfully in a very short amount of time. Now you'll see that we have this server working, operating as a reporting point inside of our environment. I want to first, before we go to the web and show the web-based reports for Configuration Manager, let's actually show the reports that exist inside of the Configuration Manager console here. If we go back to this reporting node, you'll see we have two subnodes here marked Dashboards and Reports. If we click on the Reports node, you'll see that we get a very long list of the available reports that we can choose that are canned, that come right with the default installation of Configuration Manager. If I click to sort by report here, you'll see that there are 353 canned reports that arrive live upon the very first installation of Configuration Manager. And so it's likely that most of the things that you're going to need to pull are going to be part of these canned reports already. If you scroll down, you'll see things like USB drives on a computer. You'll see things like client access usage summary. You'll see things like client deployment status tools, the number of failures in a specific task sequence, count of all instances registered with add and remove programs. There are a lot of these reports that are out here in default so that you don't have to go and create these reports. And the reason for that is because unlike creating queries and collections, which use that Configuration Manager provider language, these use strict SQL. They use actual SQL queries that you have to be able to know and understand the joins between in order to make these reports. And so if you're not comfortable with SQL, if you're not familiar with the process of creating SQL queries, you're going to have a hard time actually creating these reports. A little bit later in this nugget, I'm going to show you a way that you can make this process a little easier for yourself. So these are the canned reports. There are one type of new reports that come with Configuration Manager 2007 that I want to highlight specifically, and these are these asset intelligence reports. These asset intelligence reports do exactly what they say. They provide some additional intelligence, some more information about the assets that you have inside of your computing environment. All the clients that are inside of that computing environment get a little bit of additional information about what's going on those clients because some of this intelligence has been added to it. So, for example, let's take a look at this report here. Recently used executables on a specific computer. Now, we've talked about this asset intelligence from a generic standpoint, but what this asset intelligence does is it takes, for example, with software, we know what applications refer to what executables. With licenses, we know what applications are using what sorts of licenses. With hardware, we get a little bit more information about the types of hardware that are being used. Previously, with Configuration Manager, with SMS, we didn't have a lot of this more specific data associated with the things that are on our computers. And so providing this additional intelligence about assets gives us a better clue about the information we're pulling and what it relates to in terms of software and licenses and hardware things that make sense to us. In this case, we're going to look about specific executables that have been recently used on a specific computer. This helps us understand, well, for that specific computer, what has that user been doing? We're going to right-click here and choose Run. And in the following screen, it's going to ask us a little bit of information about how we want to pull this report. In our case, the computer name we want to pull is this Nugget 1 computer, our XP computer. And do we want to display items that are associated with an installer or something that we've installed? In this case, no. We actually want to know all of the executables that have been recently run on this computer. If we click the Display button, it's going to bring forward another report that shows us, well, look, CTF-Mon's run DLL32 is run, User Init, the VMware Tray, Explorer, and Task Manager have all been run recently on this computer. These are the applications associated with it. These are some of the file descriptions associated with it. When were they last used and which user last used those reports? So this is something that we can pull from our clients to get a good look at, well, what have you been doing on that computer? There are other reports we can choose as well. Let's say, for example, we want to know what the operating systems are, the number of operating systems that are around inside of our infrastructure. If we scroll down, we can look for, the count of operating systems and service packs that are available on all of the computers that are currently plugged into our environment. If we right-click here and choose Run, this is going to provide us with a report that says Windows XP Professional Service Pack 2, we have a count of 1, and we have one Server 2003 Enterprise Edition of count of 1 as well. Now, what's really cool about these reports happens to be these little arrows here to the left. If we click this allows us to drill down into the report to learn more information. Well, maybe we want to see which are the systems that are at that service pack and operating system level, and what's their install date and last boot up time in Windows directory. For the Server 2003 computer, what's the same information associated with the install date and last boot up time? So all of these reports, if they have the little arrows, allow us to drill down a little bit further into those computers to find additional information. So you'll see that there's sort of a tiered effect associated with all of these reports. Now, even though there are some 350 reports out there that are available for us, in some cases you may find that their reports don't provide enough information about what you're looking to do. They don't provide information about, what are the systems that have Microsoft Word on them. Maybe you want to create a report that is specific to Microsoft Word. Well, we can do that also by creating our own custom reports. Now, I want to show you first the process of creating a custom report, and then once we've shown you the process of creating that custom report, I want to show you how you can use SQL Management Studio to make that process a little easier. If we right-click here on Reports and we choose New and Report, we'll be able to create a new report. You'll see we can create folders for reports and even search folders for reports. But here we want to create a brand new report. We can say here Systems with Microsoft Word install. This is very similar to the query in the collection that we created in a previous nugget, but in this case we're creating it as a report so that we can use this outside of our Configuration Manager console. Maybe somebody wants to go to the website and make use of that report there. We can create a category for that report as well as an Asset Management, Desired Configuration Management. In our case, this is a software report, so we want to know, well, what are the software that is installed onto our clients? Do we want to display in computer details as well? Do we want to change the SQL statement? Of course we do, because our SQL statement here is going to select from the VR system table or view where the name is equal to whatever the computer name happens to be. If we click Edit SQL Statement here, we can show what the SQL statement is here. You'll see here select star from VR system. Now, a couple things you need to know about creating reports. The V_R_system table is the main table that contains the data about the computers themselves that's inside of our Configuration Manager infrastructure. The other tables, in some ways, link to V_R_system, so they pull the data out of V_R_system. I want to show you how this works because it's a little easier to see inside of SQL Server Management Studio. You'll see I brought up the SQL Server Management Studio here, and we've expanded the views node under the SMS_CBN database here. And what I want to do is actually right-click under views to create a new view. Now, it's very important when we do this that we don't actually create the new view. We're only going to make use of the new view creation tool in order to help us figure out what that query is going to be. So in no case do we ever want to actually create the new view or save it when we're complete. In our case, we always want to work with views because the views inside of Configuration Manager provide a better use of the data that's more easy for us to look for. Now, what we want to search for first is this V_R_system view here. This view is one that you'll find yourself constantly using, constantly connecting to whenever you're creating these reports. We're going to click the Add button here, and then we're going to close first to show what this view looks like. Scroll to the right here and actually scroll down just a little bit so we can take a look. You'll see here we have a resource ID, a resource type, domain name, site name, client, the client type, CPU type. There's a lot of information here about the client, about each individual client in our infrastructure here. This is the name. This is the machine name that we were interested in. This is the client's name. Maybe we're interested in the username, the last logged on user for this client, the NetBIOS name, the USMS unique identifier, for example. These are all specific to the client themselves. Now, what you'll see up here is this resource ID table in their column in this table. The resource ID is the linking table, or the link between V_R_system and the other views that are available inside of the SQL database. Let me show you how this works. First of all, if I run this query now, it will provide for me a report on all of the names and usernames for all of the systems inside of our environment. In this case, it's sccm nugget, VB nugget, nugget 1, CTX nugget 2, etc. Some of these are showing null because we don't have clients on them, and so we can't pull data off of the clients because there's no client there. In other cases, we do have a client installed onto them. In this case here, nugget 1, the last username was administrator. In the case of sccm nugget, the last username was administrator as well. So as long as we have a client on them, we can start to pull that information other than just the name itself. But what we're looking for is we want to find out if winword.exe, that executable, is currently available on those systems. So let's show how we would do this. The table that we're looking for, the view that we're looking for is under Add Table, and under Views, we're looking for VGS software file. Let's scroll down just a little bit here. We should find it right there. Now you'll notice that inside of the list of views are some that start with GS and some that start with HS. And pretty much in all cases, you're going to be looking for the GS views because those are the current information as opposed to the HH, which is the historical information available. So we're going to choose VGS software file, and we're going to add this table to our view that we're creating right here. Now, this table has some information in it as well. It has that same resource ID. That resource ID, again, links to the systems that are in our Configuration Manager infrastructure. It has information about the file and the file name and a description of the file and a version, size, and even probably a location here. There's the file path of the file as well. So for every file that is on every client in our system, we have a file name, and that file name links to a computer name, and it links through this resource ID indicator here. What I want to do is actually drag one resource ID to the other to create what we call a join. And now you'll notice down here that we've created an inner join between software file and VR system. Now these two tables are joined together, and we can pull data off of both of the tables at the same time. If we scroll down now and we click a file name, file version, and file path for this, we are now creating a very complex SQL query that we can then use to put into our report. You'll see here the SQL query is relatively complex that we've created. If we tried to create this by hand, we'd be typing in, and we maybe make a mistake in creating this by hand. So doing it inside of this view, inside of SQL Management Studio, ensures that we're doing it correctly and we're not making any typos in our creation. Now what we want to do is we want to limit. In this case, we would pull all the files off of all of our clients. In our case, we want to limit the file to just the file names where the file is equal to winword.exe. You'll see here file name, filter, winword.exe. And so now we're saying, okay, now give us all of the computer names, give us all of the user names, give us all the file names, versions, and paths in the case where winword.exe is that file. If we rerun this query, we'll now see that the only computer that has a copy of winword.exe is Nugget1. The administrator is the last logged on user. There's the file name, there's the version, and there's the location where that file currently exists. So now we've actually really drilled down into the specific query that we want to create, the specific report that we want to create based off of this SQL query that we've created. Now that we have our query, let's go ahead and copy this query to the clipboard. We're going to right-click here, we're going to copy it to the clipboard, and then we're going to go back into Configuration Manager, and we're going to create that new report that we were creating. Let me see here if that, there it is, it's still up. And we're going to paste this into our SQL statement here, replacing the existing SQL statement that exists. Bam! Now you'll see you can still do the same thing by looking at views and looking at columns inside of this SQL statement builder here inside of Configuration Manager. But what we've done is a much easier way to build this SQL statement right here using the SQL Management Studio. If I click OK here, it will approve the SQL statement for us and make that a part of the report that we're attempting to create. We're going to click Next now, and we're going to say, do we want to refresh the report automatically? Do we want to provide a chart for the report? Maybe we want to provide a column chart or a bar chart or a line chart. These are handy when we have numerical data that we want to represent inside of this report, but we're just pulling up which clients have winword.exe installed on it, so a chart's not necessarily important for us. If we want to refresh the report every so often, we can instruct the configuration management tool to automatically refresh as we're looking at the report so we can see new data as it comes in. In our case, we'll manually refresh the report as opposed to automatically doing it. Do we want to link the report to another report? Let's say we want to link to another report. We can choose the report that we want to create here by choosing among the available reports that are here inside of our reports node. Maybe we want to link to a processor for hardware. Maybe we want to link to the users that are on that computer. Maybe we want to link to additional software reports that are in here as well, companies and products, for example. These are all available. If you remember that little arrow on the left-hand side of the screen when we looked at our last reports, this is what allows us to create tiered reports or linked reports that link to each other. In our case, instead of linking to another report, we want to link to computer details. Because once we know what the computer is, we want to be able to click to link to get us specific information about that individual computer as opposed to another report. So let's take a look at computer details here. We can also choose status message details or a specific URL if we want to as well. In this case, we want to choose computer details. And here we choose the column that we want to include for that little arrow button that we're going to see inside of our report, and we click Next. We can choose the security rights that we want here. We're not going to mess with these at this point. And now we create the report. The new report wizard created successfully, so now we have a new report inside of our Configuration Manager database that we can now pull to find information about the Microsoft Word installations inside of our environment. Let's go ahead and right-click this and choose Run, and it's going to bring forward Internet Explorer again, and you'll see here that we run the report exactly the same response that we had inside of SQL. So you'll see here that creating these reports inside of SQL using the view information is in some ways a little bit easier because it's a visual way of looking at it as opposed to having to manually punch in that SQL query itself. If we click on the little link here, we can choose to view information about the computer details of Nugget 1. Clicking here shows asset intelligence information. Clicking here shows hardware disk information here, for example. Maybe there's disk information for a specific computer, modem information, general information about the computer hardware. All of this is available by clicking here on this link and drilling down into the additional information about Nugget 1. So you'll see here, these are the reports that we can create, and we can create any report, whether it be about hardware information, software information, it can be status information associated with the clients or with the site server itself. All of these are available here under our reports. Now, all of these reports are great and all, but we're getting to these reports by going through our configuration manager node itself. You know, we actually have to run these reports by going to the reporting node inside of configuration manager and clicking to run the report. But maybe we have some users that we don't want to provide access to the configuration manager console. Maybe we just want to give them access so they can run their own reports. They don't need to create reports. They just need to view the results of reports inside of some interface. And giving them the whole console may not be something we want to do. Well, we can do that actually by giving them access to the reports node itself or to the web reports. Now, if you remember, I pasted earlier on the location here of SMS reporting/CBM. I'm actually going to go there. You can provide to your users this URL as opposed to giving them the configuration manager console. And as you'll see here, all of the reports are available to them all the way down here to Wake on LAN, status messages. There's some additional dashboards here. There's software files, and then we can look for the individual custom reports that we've created as well. What we're looking for in here is systems with Microsoft Word installed. And if you'll remember, we actually stored that report under software files, under that category. Let's see, we click under software files and you'll see systems with Microsoft Word installed. This is the report that we created earlier. If we click display, we get the same report. Now again, we'd have to provide the right security for our users that we want to give access to this website, and we'll talk about that in a later nugget. But you can very easily provide them access to this location so that they can pull reports. They won't be able to create reports, but they'll be able to pull reports as necessary through the web interface as needed through this location. The location is going to be the server name /SMS reporting _ and then the site code. So this is a location you may want to point your clients to if you don't want them to have access to the configuration manager console. The last thing we need to talk about in this nugget has to do with creating dashboards. And if you'll see here up above the reports node is the dashboards node, there are actually no standard canned dashboards that arrive with the installation of Configuration Manager. What we need to do is create our own dashboard. Now, what are dashboards? Dashboards are really nothing but collections of reports. And so when we create a dashboard, we want to create a single page glimpse of multiple reports that we can view in one location. In our case, we need to give the dashboard a name. We'll call it our dashboard, and we can also limit the cell height if we want to provide a comment if we want. This is our dashboard of information. We can provide the maximum height that we want to have if we want to make the dashboard smaller or larger, or we can say, no, we don't want to limit the cell height because we want to see all the information on one screen that we can scroll back and forth to see the entire amount of data. In our case, let's limit that cell height and click Next and take us to what sorts of reports do we want to include in that dashboard. You'll see here we have 2 rows and 2 columns, which allows us to put 4 reports inside of a single dashboard. And if you remember, dashboards are designed to show sort of similar or linked information, and so we may want to provide information or reports that are somewhat linked to each other in that single view. In our case, let's actually reduce the number of rows here, so we're only looking at 2 reports, one on the left and one on the right. Let's say for the one on the left report, we want to actually let's take a look at the report that we just created, the systems. Let me go and scroll this over here. Systems with Microsoft Word installed. That's the report we just created here, and that'll be showing on the left of our dashboard. On the right, we want to choose, how about count of operating systems and service packs, which is the other report that we looked at just a little bit earlier ago. Here's count of operating systems and service packs. And so now we'll see here WinWord on the left and count of operating systems and service packs on the right. We click Next and it begins to create the report, and we're done. We click close and you'll see our dashboard is now available in the list of dashboards that we can choose. If we run the dashboard, we now see Internet Explorer appear, and on the left we have systems with Microsoft Word installed, there's the information, and on the right we have count of operating systems and service packs. And we can drill down in these individual dashboards to see more information if we want. There's the computer details that we created. We can click here to drill down even further on the right side and pull more information about computers and operating systems with specific service packs. So here we can create a nice dashboard for anyone, whether it be an administrative user or even a regular user or a management type, to be able to see information about what's going on inside of our configuration manager infrastructure. So these dashboards are handy for you when you get those middle of the day requests. Hey, I'm going to need a report that says how much RAM is in systems and how many CD-ROMs are in systems and what sort of monitors are attached. Well, rather than having to go and create these reports over and over again, you can create a single dashboard and point your users to these locations on the internet so they can go and pull the information for themselves. So let's go ahead and talk about what we discussed in this nugget. We talked about reports and dashboards and how useful reports and dashboards are for getting managers off your back when you don't want to have to keep pulling reports all the time. You can create these canned reports, or you can use the custom reports, or you can create these custom reports, or you can use the canned and asset intelligence reports that are already available inside of the database. We talked about how you can use SQL and also the views inside of SQL to make easier the process of creating those custom reports, because typing out those custom reports by hand can be somewhat difficult. And then we talked about the process of using dashboards and how dashboards are handy for a single glimpse look at various pieces of data inside of our infrastructure. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.